Palmetto State Armory makes a budget AR-15. This thing I bought back in 2020 for like less than 600 bucks. 11.5-inch AR pistol. Let's see how it runs 4 years later with thousands of rounds put through it. Welcome back to the channel. You're watching Sawtooth Tactical, and this is, or was, the Palmetto State Armory 11.5-inch AR pistol. As you can see, this is now an SBR, but I bought this during COVID as their AR pistol, 11.5-inch. In my opinion, the perfect barrel length. And this was my very first short-barreled AR, which, as you can see, began a bit of an addiction with short-barreled rifles, or at the time, AR pistols. Pistols meaning that it takes pistol braces rather than stocks. This did come with an SB Tactical SBA3 brace, and I was super excited to get this at the time. Now, obviously, I generally build guns with higher end parts these days, or at least my newest build is. But you know what? I learned a lot from this AR pistol. I made a lot of mistakes with it. I've put tons of rounds through it, and I've had it for a long time. And I think it's time to give it a real review. The good, the bad, and the ugly. So if you're interested in that, make sure you're subscribed, and let's begin. I've always said that 11.5 inches is about the perfect barrel length. It's long enough that you still get decent ballistics, but short enough that it's just easy to run around with. So as I said in the intro, this began as an AR pistol with a brace. But I've SBR'd all of my AR pistols at this point because after doing my first one, which I think this was the first one I SBR'd actually, I kind of really like to be able to run a stock and a vertical foregrip. I don't really take my guns out of state, so I don't have to worry about that whole part of owning SBRs. I already had a suppressor, and so to me, it's worth it. I got nothing against having NFA items. In fact, I've got 2 more suppressors that I'm waiting on right now. One of which is an Otter Creek Labs Polonium K, which is for 5.56 and will be used on this gun, as well as this one and others. So this muzzle device will change, but we're going to talk about that in this video too. Because like I said, I used a lot of parts that I probably wouldn't use these days on this gun. But you know what? I've had a ton of fun with this gun. PSA, I think that they do have an important place in the market. Their guns are not very expensive. This thing was like 560 bucks. And that was at the height of COVID when everything was inflated in price. But man, I've spent that much on literally a light at this point. Actually, I've spent that much on a couple of light setups. So to get a whole dang AR for about the same price as the light on either of those guns, and one that's actually ran pretty dang well, to tell you the truth. It has had a couple problems, and we'll talk about those. I think that's pretty good deal. That's a really good value. And for a lot of people that aren't willing or aren't able to spend the kind of money on something like this, I don't think that this is a bad option at all. Quick word from this video's sponsor. I've been using Aura now for a couple of months. I know you guys have seen it in my videos if you've been watching, and it's a product and a service that I really actually believe in at this point. It has totally stopped me from getting spam calls. Now, data brokers are a real thing these days. Scammers, spammers, all this stuff. I've been trying to sell a pickup truck lately, and at first all I was getting was scammers. Well, Aura took care of that, and I'm not hearing from the scammers anymore. Unfortunately, I still haven't sold the truck, but I've got a lot of examples like that. In fact, the place where I work just recently got scammed and we lost out on a whole day's worth of revenue. Well, Aura can stop things like that from happening. They search the entire internet for anywhere where your information is being sold to people, and they submit opt-out requests on your behalf, which takes care of your information being out there. It clears you up so that you stop getting spam calls. You stop getting scammers. There are people out there these days whose whole career is just scamming people out of their money by finding their information on the internet. And as sickening and as sad as that is, it's a reality. And for only $12 a month, you can stop them from being able to take advantage of you. If you use my link, which is the first link in the description, aura.com/sawtoothtactical, you get to try it out free for 2 weeks. And then you can decide if it's something that you still want to stick with. But Aura is pretty confident that you'll stick with it, and that's why they give you that 2-week free trial. $12 a month after that is a really good deal for all of the different things that you get with Aura. I've been sticking with it for a few months. I'm really happy with it. I respect my privacy and I respect yours. Now, the whole reason that I bought this gun is at the time I was really interested in getting a binary trigger, and I wanted a short-barreled platform to run a binary trigger in for some reason. Funny, ironic thing is I rarely use the binary function anymore, although I did today because of this video. Every once in a while, it's just fun to mag dump. But that was the whole reason I bought this. And so I kind of just wanted a cheap short-barreled gun, and PSA had that available, so that's what I bought. It was pretty basic when I got it, except that it did come with a 10.5-inch M-LOK rail. Is it the best handguard in the world? Not really, but it hasn't given me any problems. The M-LOK works. It does what an M-LOK rail is supposed to do, although it doesn't have Picatinny fully across the top, so I had to find alternative ways of mounting a pressure pad, which is why I chose this Crimson Trace light specifically. Now, is this a light that I would get again? Probably not. But has it given me any problems? Not at all. So, kind of like this rifle, a lot of the parts that on it, very budget, but they all work really well. This PSA AR might not have the Gucciest parts, like some of my newer rifles, but the thing sure does run. As you can see, I've painted this gun. Did this paint job myself. Rattle can with a stencil that I got off Amazon. I'll put a link to that stencil down below. You know, it's got the Sig Romeo 5 with a Sig Juliet 3 magnifier. You know, a lot less of an expensive option than the EOTech Unity setup there, but does it work? It sure does. I've had this Romeo 5 for a long time. I've never changed the battery on it. The magnifier does what magnifiers do. All the parts on this are kind of like that, but you know what? This rifle now, it was a pistol, has worked pretty well. I have changed things out about it. Like I said, the whole reason I got it was to put a binary trigger in it. So this has the Fostech Echo trigger in it. And, of course, the way that works is that when you pull the trigger, it fires around. When you release the trigger, it fires around. But it's also 3 position, so you can put it in regular semi where you pull the trigger, release, and it resets just like every other semi-automatic trigger. Now, the Fostech Echo 2 trigger is heavy and squishy, but I replaced a spring, added a bushing, and now it's super light and actually pretty good, especially in semi mode. So, is it going to come out of this gun? No. Is it something that's fun that's in it? Yes. Is it practical? I don't know, but it is fun. And that's kind of the whole point of this build, is it is fun. Initially, I wanted to make this my home defense gun, but 5.56 out of a short barrel with a break, whew, not something that I really want to shoot indoors. And that's why I now have a suppressed 300 blackout for home defense. I like the idea of something short and maneuverable, but 5.56 out of a short barrel is going to do something to you that you don't like. If you have to shoot it inside, it's going to make you deaf. You know, there is something called audio exclusion. Is that going to happen if you need to use it in that circumstance? Maybe, maybe not. I don't really know if I want to risk that. And so I'm going to suppress everything. And my 300 blackout is now my home defense gun. Is this the gun that I test everything on? And if I shot it suppressed? Absolutely. And suppressed, it's even better. It does have a carbine length gas system. And I remember when I first got this, I thought for an AR, it seemed like it had a lot of recoil. I don't feel that way anymore. Maybe I'm just a better shooter than I used to be. In fact, it actually feels like it shoots pretty soft. Has it been reliable? For the most part. Now, on these Gen 2 PMags, it doesn't want to lock back on the last round. With Gen 3 PMags, it does just fine. But it has had one major problem. One thing about having a cheap beater gun is you can beat it and you can abuse it and you don't have to care too much about it. What is that major problem, you might ask? Well, somewhere between 2,000 and 3,000 rounds, I was shooting it suppressed with the Huxworks Flow 556K suppressor, and I've mag dumped this gun a lot with the binary trigger. I've been pretty hard on it compared to my other ARs that are just regular semi-auto. And so I'm a little bit not surprised, but at the same time, this is the only bolt that I've ever broke. The original PSA bolt that came with this. Now it is Carpenter 158. It is magnetic particle inspected. It's all the things that you want to see in a bolt carrier group, but it did break. Should it have broken somewhere between 2,000 and 3,000 rounds? I don't think so. But again, I have kind of abused this gun. And what did I do? Went to my local gun store, bought another bolt carrier group, went back out shooting that day, and it runs just great with the new bolt carrier group. And in fact, the action on this thing is super duper smooth. Honestly, for the price, the machining, everything about this, besides the broken bolt, which I know is a big deal, it's pretty dang decent, honestly. Now, does this rail feel like a Geisley rail? Of course not. You know, came with a pistol brace, but you know what? Pistol braces make a lot of sense if you're not going to SBR something, or before you're going to SBR something. Other than that, everything's been fine. Of course, I switched out the things that I normally do. You know, I've got a Radian Raptor charging handle, but I've got cheap optics, kind of cheap backup irons on it. They're like, you know, like a clone of the Troy sights. But they work fine. I've never had to use them, but they are zeroed just in case. You know, it's got a Crimson Trace light, which is kind of cheap, but it works. And it's, you know, held up through thousands of rounds. It's got a Strike Industries muzzle brake on it because I got this before I really knew any better about higher end parts. But you know what? This thing sure does make the recoil nice and soft. And in fact, because it does have so much concussion and stuff, I even got this thing for when other people are shooting around me. This is the Strike Industries oppressor. And this does a great job of making it not feel like it's punching people in the face that are off to the side, because a short barreled 5.56 will feel that way with a big break on it like this. Other than that, you know, mil-spec receivers. It came with PSA's EPT, which is their enhanced polish trigger, I believe, which wasn't bad, which is a mil-spec trigger. This somehow this binary trigger is actually better after the internal work that I've done to it. But you know what? If what you can afford is a PSA AR, I wouldn't hesitate getting one. Now, there's a lot of gun snobs out there, and I myself have come to the point where I do like higher end, more expensive parts and gear, and I like to build my own guns now. But if I had a negative experience with this PSA, besides the bolt breaking, I've actually had a pretty positive experience with it. The reason that I haven't gone over every little detail and stuff, like maybe I would in some other reviews, is because for the most part it's a basic mil-spec AR-15. Basic lower, basic upper, you know, came with a M16 cut bolt carrier group, basic carbine buffer system, basic mil-spec trigger. It did come with a full-length M-LOK rail. That is nice. But it's a very basic AR-15. And then I painted it. And I've thrown some stuff on it. Not really Gucci gear, but stuff that has worked just fine. And it's been a gun that I've really, really enjoyed. And so that's kind of my point with this video is, if you're on the fence, if you don't feel like you could spend $1,500, $2,000 on an AR, or $4,000, and you want to just get something like this, I wouldn't hesitate. Now, has PSA been known for QC issues? They have, but they're also known to have good customer service. So if you do have an issue, they will fix it. And honestly, I think some of that stuff gets blown out of proportion. Maybe. I do have 2 PSA products. This and this. This is the only one that's had a bolt break. This is the only one that's had a firing pin break. So, do things happen? Yes. Are they easy to fix in a Glock platform and an AR platform? Does it just take swapping out a part? Also, yes. So, even if something breaks, still a lot cheaper than getting something totally Gucci. And if that's all you can afford, that's one of the things that I love about PSA. Their whole motto, their whole, mission statement, whatever you want to call it, is to be able to arm the masses so that people that maybe couldn't otherwise afford an AR or an AK pattern rifle can afford to be armed. And that, to me, is what the Second Amendment is kind of all about. And so I do have a lot of respect for that. And do I still run this gun all the time? I do. Do I test things on it? I do. Have I run it suppressed? Yes. Have I mag dumped the shit out of it? Also, yes. Does it continue to work with the new bolt carrier group? Also, yes. So let me know what you guys think about PSA products down in the comments. I always want to hear from you guys. I want to know your experience. Have you had good experiences or bad? Because I know people have had both. But I think the overwhelming majority is probably pretty positive. My experience has been mostly positive. In fact, kind of overwhelmingly positive. Besides, again, the broken bolt. But I'd love to hear what you guys have to think, what you guys have to say, what you guys have to write down in the comments. Otherwise, make sure you subscribe to Sawtooth Tactical. If you enjoyed this video, please give me a like. Please join Aura if you want to support the channel. And from Sawtooth Tactical, stay strapped or get clapped.